Good morning. My name is Henry Witrago, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today for another Power Breakfast event. Please remember to add your name or your company name on your Zoom profile and make sure you have your video on and your microphone mute during the event. This event is, as many of the ones we host, is going to be recorded for sharing later on social media. If you have questions for today's speakers, please send it through private message to our CEO, Jason Ebig, or add it to the chat where our Director of Policy and Government Relations, Margot Orr, will be tracking them. If you are having any technical issues, please reach out to me through direct message. Now, to introduce our speakers for today, here's the Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce CEO, Jason Ebig.
Thanks, Henry. Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Jason Ebig, CEO of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber. It's great to see you all this morning. The Chamber team and many of you are participating today from Treaty 6 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis people. As a Chamber, we're committed to growing a Saskatoon rooted in shared success and respectful relationships and true reconciliation. And if you're joining us from other parts of the province today, a warm welcome to you and thank you for being here. So Saskatoon's Prairieland Park has seen many changes over the course of its 135-year history. What started as a site for agricultural shows has evolved into a major special event, exhibition, and sports entertainment destination for audiences of all backgrounds. It's home to a variety of facilities, including Sports on Tap, Prairieland Ag Center, World Trade and Convention Center, and countless third-party meetings and trade shows and special events. And of course, the X, which has been a Saskatoon summertime staple for generations of families and kids across Saskatchewan. But perhaps the biggest change for Prairieland, at least in recent memory, is now underway with the announcement that horse racing at Marquis Downs is being phased out and a new professional soccer facility and franchise for Saskatoon is on its way. So those behind the project say it promises to be a more popular and profitable venture and will tap into unmet demand and a fan base that will definitely support it. So to learn a bit more about the project and the state of Prairieland Park generally, we're very pleased to welcome Mark Regier, who's CEO of Prairieland Park, and Al Simpson, who's president of Living Sky Sports and Entertainment. Mark has been a key to the growth and success of Prairieland as CEO over the last 2 decades, and is certainly a familiar face in Saskatoon and our business community. Al is a lifelong Saskatchewan resident who founded the Living Sky Sports and Entertainment Inc. Company in September 2020 and has secured the exclusive rights to launch a Canadian Premier League, CPL, expansion franchise here in Saskatchewan. So Mark and Al, it's a pleasure to welcome you both today. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Let me turn things over to you for an overview of your plans, and then we'll open up the discussion. So Mark and Al, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. Good morning and welcome. And thanks for having us on your program. Yeah, the overview, we've been in business since 1886. Believe it or not, I think we're the longest running organization in the city. But it's a private not-for-profit corporation. It's actually membership based. We have 290 plus members that elect a volunteer board of directors, which are very competent people from the community at large. And from there, they hire the CEO, and I obviously hire a dedicated team of managers and staff to run our operations. Traditionally, we've had 4 main divisions to the corporation, as you indicated. The World Trade Center Convention Place, which we do facility rentals, audiovisual services, food and beverage services. We have about 240,000 square feet. That the facility is very busy year round with local, national, and even some international events that come to Saskatoon. We have an agriculture division that runs our major Western Canadian crop production show in January, which is sold out and waiting list annually. They run the Prairieland Park Ag Center. They run numerous shows like Equine Expo and about 5 major junior shows for youth in agriculture. Then we have our events department. This department produces our major shows like the Saskatoon X, Gardenscape, Entertainment Expo, the Glow Gardens Christmas Show, and a number of smaller other events that they do. Now, traditionally, we were in horse racing. We ran thoroughbred racing at Marquis Downs probably for 100 years. I'm estimating we'd been in the business. But we've had some challenges financially with that over the years. Certainly with declining revenues, we now obviously looking at moving to soccer. So we go to page 2, or section 2 of our, we're a little bit of a complex organization. There are some that say, well, what are we zoned for? Well, we have a land lease with the city, and it's pretty broad based. The city, can you go to the next slide, please? Sorry, I went through that one. There we go. We have a lease agreement with the city. Now, that's one thing we do is we do get from the city is that we're exempt from taxation, which is consistent throughout the industry in Canada. We're exempt through the Provincial Cities Act, which is comparative to all the big fairs, which includes the small fairs as well in Saskatchewan. So that's the one thing we do get from the city is a tax abatement, which we are very pleased to have. Again, that assists us because we have 136 acres we have to maintain, including all the infrastructure underneath the ground. So if you move to the next slide, you'll see our overall annual budget is $23 million per year. We have a $9 million payroll, which includes 90 full-time staff, 250 part-time, and 250 summer seasonal staff as well. We've invested over $30 million into the park over the last 20 years, which is fairly significant investment. Virtually no capital funding received from the city and province. So this is where people might say, well, we get the abatement in tax, but I have to give you examples for comparison. We have had not a single dollar. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'd say 200,000 maybe from the city and the province over the last 20 years. Comparatively, Regina Exhibition has received $40 million over the last 10 years from the city of Regina. Lethbridge, they just announced a new convention center where the city of Lethbridge is investing $25 million into the park. And of course, the big one in our industry is the Calgary Stampede. If you haven't heard of the announcement of their new trade and convention center, that's going to be $500 million, $166 million from the city of Calgary, the province of Alberta, and of course, the government of Canada. So other jurisdictions obviously see the benefit of having a good exhibition association running these events for the community. We on top of our payroll and our budget, we do pay a lot of taxes, $380,000 in GST in 2019, provincial tax of $644,000. And in 2019, we had utilities in a total of $835,000. It is an interesting statistics. There's over 3,600 organizations that conduct business on the park each and every year. Now that includes private corporations, charities, nonprofits, cultural associations. It's quite the statistic when you think about it. When you look at all of our events that take place here, there's a lot of business conducted here with a total estimated economic impact of $125 million on the city of Saskatoon. So that's a quick overview of Prairieland. And, this soccer thing has come along. We see a trend that in racing that we are the last exhibition association in Canada to be in thoroughbred horse racing. It struggled financially for many, many years. We don't see a good future in it. And the opportunity now to pivot to soccer with a private investor from Regina, Mr. L. Simpson, coming along. And we see this as a great opportunity for Prairieland to bring a CPL franchise here, and for Saskatoon, which has 8,000 kids and 5,000 adults in the game. So it's a growing sport. We see lots of interest in this, and we see this is going to be something big for the community. So we think this is the right direction for Prairieland Park and for the city. And we'll talk some more about that. I will now turn it over to Mr. L. Simpson.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks very much for the invite by the Chamber of Commerce in Saskatoon. I am as I like to say, a lifelong Saskatchewan resident and spent a little bit of time in Saskatoon at the U of S. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Henry, if you could go to the first soccer slide, would be a good place for me to start. So I'll talk just a little bit about the ownership of the Canadian Premier League. The league launched in 2019, and it launched with 7 teams. So the inaugural season went very well. The championship game was held at Spruce Meadows in Calgary with about 12,000 people in attendance. And in 2020, the league added an 8th team, and they were successful in playing in a bubble in Charlottetown with no COVID infections, and hopefully we can be one of the next teams to launch in Saskatoon. So basically, the ownership group is Dean Shillington out in Pacific FC, or just outside of Victoria. The Southern family, more well known as the founders of ATCO, and they own Spruce Meadows in Calgary. Tom Fath, businessman up in Edmonton. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers own the Winnipeg franchise. Bob Young on the lower left owns the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the franchise, the CPL franchise in Hamilton. Carlo Baldessera, the Toronto franchise. The Ottawa Atletico out of Ottawa are owned by Atletico Madrid, which is probably the 4th largest soccer club in the world. And finally, in Halifax, we've got the ownership group out there. So one of the interesting things about the qualifiers for ownership is you can't get into this league unless the ownership group has a net worth of greater than $50 million. So the reason that I mention that is there's a real good, I guess, commitment to making sure that this league has a sustainability once it gets launched by each team to sustain itself, as you might expect over the early years. If you don't, can you go to the next slide, Henry? The CPL executive team, there's many of them. The 2 key players are the commissioner, David Clanacan. David's a big soccer fan, but David's claim to fame is that he was the CEO and chief operating officer of Tim Hortons Canada, and he actually decided to pack that role in and come work for CPL as commissioner. And the president of Canadian Soccer Business in CPL is Scott Mitchell. Scott also acts as the president of the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the Canadian Football League. Next slide, please. So there you see the 8 teams right now, all the way from, on the left, Pacific FC, which plays out in Victoria, or just outside of Victoria, all the way out to Halifax with the Halifax Wanderers, and we hope to fill in that big gap in the middle with Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in due course. Next slide, please, Henry. This is probably one of the most important slides I'm going to show you. You're probably all familiar with, or at least have heard to some extent, the broadcasting digital marketing deals that the NBA and most recently the NFL have signed. Both of those marketing deals, or broadcast deals, I'll call them, had a heavy component on digital broadcast or over the top. And so much the same is happening with CPL, where they've signed a long-term agreement with Media Pro, which is one of the largest producers of soccer, both online and mainstream media in the world. And Media Pro has then developed relationships with CBC Sports, TELUS, SaskTel, Rogers, and Bell for the broadcast of the CPL games. So the CPL, while they will be broadcast to some extent on mainstream media, and they have been the last 2 years, there's really a big push to do the digital broadcasting. And of course, that takes and gives the league and the cities in the league not only national exposure, but international exposure. So it's really important that the league has decided to, right off the bat, make a strong commitment to digital or over-the-top broadcasting, which is where the world is going these days. Is there another slide there, Henry? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but I'm just going to point you to the circle on the left-hand side, where you can see 39% of the fans of the CPL are between the ages of 13 and 29, and another 32% between the age of 30 and 39. So you combine between age 13 to 39, and you've got 61% of CPL fans are under the age of 39. That's an outstanding demographic and a lot different from some of the other professional leagues, not only in the US, but also in Canada. And it speaks to the growth of the game at the grassroots level when you've got that kind of a demographic. Do we have another one, Henry? Digital and social overview. The league just continues to gain social media, I guess, following. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'll come back to it in about 2 or 3 minutes and give you some key statistics about how our announcement of CPL trended on Twitter Canada and online in Canada, and they'll be absolutely shocking. Is there another one, Henry? Yeah. These are some of the key sponsors that the league has right now: Allstate, Toyota, Volkswagen, Gatorade, WestJet for travel, Macron, Nike, New Era, Humanidor, Tequila, Circle K, and Powerade. So this is just a sampling of some of the national sponsorship that the league has begun to attract. And to give you an idea of or a sense of what sponsors think of this league, you look at that little swoosh down there, which represents Nike. Nike knows where sports is going, and soccer is a big one. So I can't overemphasize that enough. Is there another slide, Henry, or is that the last one? Yeah, and this is, I think it's the final one that I'll speak to on slides at least. This is our first rendition of what we think Prairieland Park can look like at Marquee Downs. We'd like to get a stadium that will seat somewhere between 500 and 6,500 fans. We would like to keep the existing horse race grandstand. You can see the top of the picture there, just below the fireworks. That would represent Marquee Downs right now, but with the roof taken off and just with outdoor seating. So the architects are kind of playing with that look. And we will continue to develop these drawings over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think that's kind of the end of the slide presentation. Some of the other key things that I'd like to leave you with would be, we think from an economic activity standpoint, where our team would play roughly 20 games at home in a season. That would mean for visiting teams, 20 inbound flights into YXC Airport and 20 outbound. So that's a total of 40. And then the home team as well would go 20 outbound, 20 inbound coming back. So an additional 80 flights to the YXE Airport. So we think there's a lot of economic drivers here. Generally speaking, though, if we look at hotel, food and beverage, airport, billets for our players, and amusement tax on a per ticket basis, we think the club just generates in excess of $2 million a year in Saskatoon of what I'll call consumption expenditures. You know, the airport obviously going to collect landing fees, there's lavatory dumping fees, there's terminal fees, all that comes with 80 flights. Hotels, we think there's going to be north of 1,000 hotel nights. That's not only the teams that are staying, that are traveling to stay in, but also fans. If we're averaging 4,000 fans and 10% of those come from out of town and only half of those, hey, that's another 200 fans at 2 people per room. That's 200 room nights. So there's a lot of economic drivers that come with the professional soccer team. And we think Saskatoon deserves to be put on the map in terms of getting that exposure. So back to the exposure thing. When we announced on March the 12th, when I say we, it was Canadian Premier League, Living Sky Sports and Entertainment, and Prairieland Park, that we were going to do this, and we issued our press release. The afternoon of March the 12th, hashtag Canadian Premier League with Prairieland Park trended #7 on Twitter, Canada-wide. #7, Saskatoon, Prairieland Park, soccer. That's amazing. With everything that was going on and is going on Twitter with the vaccines and so on and so forth. #7 Canada-wide. The point being, the soccer people are quiet, but they are watching this. There's a big, big crowd watching this. #2, our social media impressions on March the 12th across all of the platforms that we have, which was Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, garnered 729,000 impressions. 729,000 impressions for that announcement. And so some of the skeptics said to me, well, how many of those did you pay for? 0. We paid for 0. I got 729,000 impressions. So what we're talking about doing is we're talking about bringing the biggest game in the world to Saskatoon. The biggest game in the world to Saskatoon. And that's going to have economic impact for jobs. It's going to drive ancillary revenues through other things that we'll hold at the stadium. So big economic driver, lots of exposure for Saskatoon. And we think that at the end of the day, we're going to need the government to help a little bit, the government of Saskatchewan. We're going to need the province of Saskatchewan. We're going to need the city of Saskatoon. But I'm prepared to step up and put money into this project, private money. Prairieland is prepared to step up and put private money into the project. And we think that at the end of the day, Saskatoon's ready for it. I'll leave you with 2 thoughts. First one is, I would argue that over the last 20 years, Canada being a nation of immigrants, the last 20 years, the majority of people who have landed on this shores, on our shores, have come from jurisdictions where soccer was either the #1 participant sport, or it was the #1 spectator sport, or both. And so when you can take a game like that, and you can take all that diversity, and you can put a thread through all of those diverse cultures and bring them together a couple nights a week on weekends under sort of one banner, cheering for one thing, that builds social cohesiveness. That builds social cohesiveness. And if that's not what we're looking for, then I'm missing it. But that's what soccer can do. The final point would be, and it's a little bit of a joke, and I'll do the question and answer. But the joke is, knock, knock. Who's there? Opportunity. Don't be silly, it can't be opportunity. Opportunity doesn't knock twice. We're here now, we need to do it now. We'd like your support. And thanks very much for listening to my rant and passion on soccer for Saskatoon.
Excellent. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Mark. That was a really good overview. I smiled a little bit, Al, when you said that soccer people are quiet. Everything I've seen is exactly opposite. It strikes me that these are the most passionate and loud fans on the planet, save, of course, Rider Nation. But
and you're absolutely right. At the games, they are absolutely passionate. But in terms of when you sort of get them to cross over into the political realm and kind of voice their support for this thing, not so much. That's kind of not the culture. It's very quiet, and they watch and they sort of quietly assess the situation. So there's sort of the 2 faces, but you're absolutely right. At the game, very passionate, but as they watch this progress, very quiet, but there nonetheless.
You bet. Well, we'll turn our attention to that group in just a moment. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about sort of what you see as the potential fan base for this franchise and team, et cetera. But But Mark, you know, I want to kick things back over to you just for the moment. You know, there's been so much talk about the phasing out of horse racing at Marquis Downs. I want to take a minute just to clarify a couple things with you, because these are the questions that have been sort of raised and sort of top of mind, and I think we should just get them out of the way. The first one is, you know, obviously horse racing at Marquis Downs wasn't profitable. It you know, year over year there was a struggle to get this particular offering, you know, it to some sort of profitable state. Was there any case to be made around maintaining it as a loss leader to get people frequenting the park, using other amenities? Was there any business case at all to maintain horse racing at Marquis Downs that you?
Well, if I may, Prairieland has, I think, been in the industry of horse racing for over 100 years, as I said. I would say to you that over the last 30 years, certainly since I've been here, it's been a struggle. And we've tried everything we could to try to make it viable financially and otherwise. We've looked under every rock for cash flow, but it's pretty much dried up. And now the losses are fairly substantial for Prairieland. And the facility needs millions of dollars of upgrades, electrical upgrades, barns. And we've been out of the business now for 2 years because of COVID. We can't get jockeys here. Like there's no jockeys around anymore. Nobody's going to jockey school. We have to import 13 jockeys every year from the Caribbean just to make this work. We can't get them here. It's a very challenging business to run. So the thing was, we believe we've already done that. We've done that for the last 25, 30 years that we've supported and horse racing here at the track. And I think we've done an admirable job getting fans there. But when we look at the direction of the industry with, you know, the average age of our attendees, the declining horses in the business, and we look at the infrastructure required, and the board just says, you know, what is the future for this? And when you look at it, you say, even I think if Prairieland would have tried to continue in this business, it would have been gone within 3 to 5 years, just not only financially, but just the logistics of running it. So our board has to be visionary, look into the future. What's the best use of our assets at Prairieland? And this opportunity came along for soccer with a private investor, going after the younger demographics. And it was felt this is the right decision for this corporation. It's a bold decision. I know that there's going to be some upset people because of their passion for horse racing. But as I mentioned to you earlier, we're the last fair organization, last exhibition association in Canada to be in thoroughbred racing. It doesn't survive without massive subsidies from somebody. And as I mentioned too, the Calgary Stampede, which is the mecca of cowboy country, has been out of horse racing since 2008. So the trend is there. It's quite obvious, and it just comes a time when you look towards the future. What's right for this business? What's right for this corporation? And what's right for the city of Saskatoon?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Mark. I think that's an excellent overview. And you know, one of the lingering questions is sort of how aggressively was Prairieland looking at replacing horse racing with another offering? So, you know, I guess the question is, you know, were you on the active hunt for another entertainment option, or was it a case of you know, opportunity knocking at the right time, and it just made sense? How aggressively, pardon me, was Prairieland sort of looking at all?
Well, we weren't. We didn't really know what to do with the facility. I mean, if racing went down, we didn't want to have a big facility sitting over there not in use. That would have been a major problem for us. So, I mean, we need to reposition that for something. So yeah, it was a situation where we have a struggling division, a struggling business over there, and we get this opportunity where a private investor comes knocking on our door. What do? I mean, a wise board of directors is going to say, you go with it. Your instincts say that we're going to pivot to the future. We have an opportunity to repurpose that facility for the new fans, the next generation of people. And you say, you make the bold decision to do this, even though, you know, some people are going to be upset with you. That takes a lot of courage, but we have a very visionary board of directors that sees the future and knows what's right for this city and for this corporation.
You do have a very solid board, and it's been a bit unfortunate to watch some of the sort of very personal attacks that have been levied on the board on yourself at this time. Can you talk a little bit about some of the toll that some of this has taken here since the big announcement last month? How's everybody responding to all this criticism in some corners?
Well, of course, you know, we're all human beings, and you know, you do tend to take things personally. I was, you know, we generally try as management, we're paid staff to try to shield the board of directors from these type of things, but we're a little bit unable to do that. And I commend some of my board members at the senior level, Curtis Galka, now the past chair, and Corey Toms, now the new chair, who were personally attacked as well. It's unfortunate, but we're business people. We make the right decisions and we stand down. And we stick to our goal and we work our way through it. And, you know, it takes a lot of courage to do that, as I said, but we've always had this conversation when I'm retired and some of these directors are no longer on this board, we're going to come back to Prairieland and say, we got this done. We got this done for this city and for this corporation, and our people will appreciate it that we did that.
Thanks. All right, well, let's shift gears now. That's the story of Marquis and the decision, but let's look a little bit ahead now and talk CPL. Al, you know, you talked a little bit about some of the considerations that went into sort of Saskatoon as a destination, I guess, for this franchise and facility. What specific features or factors really pointed to Saskatoon as an ideal market here, say versus Regina, which has an established CFL team, and I did note the connection between the Tiger Cats and the Bombers in terms of the ownership group. Why Saskatoon? Why now?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First and foremost, Saskatoon has an incredibly strong soccer culture. And so there's a strong base from which to grow the team. You know, we just got a testimonial online support from Saskatoon Adult Soccer yesterday that we posted, but you know that they represent 140 teams and 3,000 adult soccer players saying, yes, we have to do that. We have to do the stadium project. We have to get pro soccer into Saskatoon. So first and foremost, a strong culture of soccer at the youth level and even at the adult level. And so that's a good base for us to grow from. And then secondly, when we were able to come to an arrangement with Prairieland Park, it was location, 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 and then location. I mean, there are cities in this country, large and small, that would do double backflips to have 136 acres of land, 4 or 5 minutes drive from the downtown core, and to be able to do this. Not to mention the fact that you've also got, you know, Circle Drive that was just built running around it for access. So, I mean, this is just made for pro sports. It's what the infrastructure in the city has been built to do. And so now's the time to take advantage of it. So there's the location piece, and then the willingness of having the expertise of a manager like Prairieland Park to manage a stadium. Like Mark said, they've been doing special events and big events for the last 100 years, and they do it very well. So the combination of location, the management, the support in the city, all coming together makes Saskatoon a natural for the pro game.
What's your sense of sort of, I mean, you've talked about sort of this quiet majority, you know, there's a fan base out there, they're deeply passionate about this. And we've seen the success of other professional leagues that have come to the city, the Rush, the Rattlers, et cetera. What are you really projecting in terms of fan support, Al? What are we really looking at here in that inaugural year in terms of gate and tickets purchased and seats bought?
No, you're right. I mean, the Rush have met with tremendous success. The Rattlers are coming along. I think that, and the league itself, the CPL, is averaging about 3,800 fans a game in the inaugural season. So if you extrapolate from that, I think, that once we hit our stride in Saskatoon, we're going to average 5,000 plus quite easily, and be able to grow from there. It's just the game is growing so much at the grassroots level, and so that's where the support's going to come from. And again, I hate to repeat myself, but we see that in Saskatoon with youth soccer, we see that in Saskatoon with adult soccer, and then just generally across the country. So I'm pretty confident that 4,000 a game is doable. 5 or 6 would be very easily achievable a few years down the road, and probably ending up at 10 or 12 once you're 1,000 per game, once you're fully mature. I think I mentioned earlier on Spruce Meadows, who developed the stadium at their site and owned the Calgary franchise, had 12,000 for the league final in 2019, first year. So everything sort of is looking like the support is there in spades for the pro game in Canada.
Yeah, just if you look at other franchises, and we just sort of give us a high level pie chart here, Al. What's their sort of the relative percentage of revenue, say from tickets versus sponsorships versus merchandise? Like, what really greases the wheels of a profitable and successful team?
So I'm not going to go into details in terms of revenue generated, but I mean, there's the profitability of each team comes from a number of different areas. Obviously, gate is a big one, but I went through the national sponsorship, so that's a very big one. Media One, for instance, paid the league $20 million upfront fee for the first 10 years of broadcasting rights, so that's $2 million a year. And then you've got the ancillary rights with the merchandising, the stadium naming rights, and so on. So it's a combination of a lot of different things, but I don't want to go into the details of the business.
Understood. But just curious to hear how this particular league functions. But it sounds like it functions very similarly to, say, the Rush, the Rattlers, and others. It's a multitude of streams that make it possible. But you did reference that the business plan does call for some level of government support, locally and provincially. Can you say a little bit about what that looks like and to what extent?
Sure. Well, right now, Prairieland and Living Sky, we're working through finalizing our capital costs on a stadium, and we haven't arrived there yet. But that being said, we know that there's going to be a certain amount of financial support required from the city of Saskatoon and the province of Saskatchewan. And we're going to follow very much, or we hope to follow very much, the model for Mosaic Stadium, where the Rough Riders made a small commitment to pay for the capital. I think of $278 million, they made a $25 million contribution. Of course, they don't have any private equity in Mosaic, but we'll do the same thing. So Prairieland's going to put in money, Living Sky is going to put in money. I think that between Prairieland and Living Sky and what the team could contribute in terms of charging an amusement tax per ticket that would go back to the city, we would probably be at 20-25% of the capital cost, and then the amusement tax on a per ticket basis would be ongoing over the years. So these are public works projects at the end of the day, though, Jason. I mean, they're SaskTel Center, Mosaic Stadium, every hockey rink that was ever built in Saskatoon, maybe aside from the Belcher, is all public money. The tennis courts are paid for publicly. So this needs to be a public works project. And we think that the team, well, we know the team is what makes this project possible, because we come in as the anchor tenant. So, if you can build a stadium, you've got an anchor tenant, but the team will make a contribution to the stadium itself.
Okay. Just speaking of that, it just strikes us that, teams that are most successful in this community, in any community, are ones that take the time and effort to sort of entrench themselves in the community in some way, right? Give us a sense of how you're going to go about ensuring that this team really roots deep here and gains the support it needs to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, and you're absolutely right. And we've taken and made some huge strides in that direction, especially if you begin to follow our social media. Like yesterday, like I say, we received the endorsement of Saskatoon Adult Soccer. So that's grassroots stuff. We have the support of the supporters group, Bridge City, Firm, and Wheatpool. That's grassroots stuff. I'm going to speak a little bit out of school, but we're going to, or we're confident that we're going to be receiving the unequivocal support of the board of directors of Saskatchewan Soccer. And there's 68 community clubs, and there are 40,000 registered members in Saskatchewan. So that's grassroots stuff. And that's what we're working on. And we intend to show that to the city of Saskatoon, that we're working on that grassroots support, and we will continue to do so. So we're hard at it right now.
Excellent to hear. Do you have a name for the team yet, Al?
No. That's the fun stuff. But my agreement with the Canadian Premier League, or my agreement in principle, is quite straightforward. It says basically, we can have an expansion franchise in Saskatoon if we have a soccer-ready stadium. So I think once we get a shovel in the ground and the financing done, I think I got that backwards, get the financing done and the shovel in the ground, we will turn our attention to choosing a name and team colors. But again, you talk about grassroots, Jason. That's not going to be an Al Simpson decision or a Prairieland decision. We'll go back to the grassroots and have some fun with it and let them pick the colors and the name and that sort of thing.
Excellent. No, that sounds very cool. And speaking of, the shovel in the ground and the financing, just what is sort of the timeline and some of the major milestones here to the development and opening of this facility? Just high level. Yeah. We hope to have our stadium design plans done late May, maybe mid-June, though that's kind of always a moving target. Ideally, we would like to have shovel in the ground at Prairieland in Q2 of 2022 and play our first game in 2023. That's an ambitious timeline. We have to be realistic. It might need to be 2024, but I can tell you one thing for sure. If we say 2024, we're never going to hit 2023. So that's what we're looking at 60,000 feet. Excellent. Great overview, Al. I mean, this is pretty exciting stuff. And it's clear that the muscle and the capacity behind this venture is there. It looks like a very, very strong plan and a very, very strong team putting it together. So kudos to you for marshaling that group and those resources and getting this opportunity here. Very, very exciting.
Well, more so to the soccer community right now in Saskatoon at the Prairieland Park. Mm-hmm. You have to have a pretty strong visionary kind of group to make the decisions that Prairieland Park has taken, to put themselves out there, to look into the crystal ball, if you will, and understand, the growth of soccer, and make the decisions that they've made, and then to have the community support that we're getting from the soccer community in Saskatoon. That's, without those people, living Sky Sports Entertainment is nothing. I mean, you can't do it. We couldn't do it. So it's all back at the soccer community in Saskatoon, the sports community in Saskatoon, and the vision that Prairieland Park has.
Excellent. Mark, I want to kick things back to you, just in terms of just sort of wrapping things up a little bit. We'll get off soccer. We'll get off Marcus for just a minute. Let's talk a little bit about the effect that COVID's had on Prairieland this year. I mean, anybody who's in the large event gathering business has been hit really hard. Give us a sense of what all of this has done to your balance sheet and your business plan, and then how things are looking in terms of a return to normal.
Well, thanks for letting me speak to that too. Yeah, we had a record year in 2019, and 2020 was shaping up to be a big year for us. If you recall, there was a lot of events booked here. We had the Junos booked here for SaskTel Center. Prairieland was going to be hosting the 1,200 person banquet here, the awards banquet for the Junos, and this was cut down literally 3 days before the event took place. We had a lot of major events booked in 2020. The International Crop Sciences Congress was going to have 900 to 1,000 people here in June of last year. That was all wiped out. So our business was wiped out for the most part in 2020. Fortunately, because we had that first quarter, we were able to break even. But our revenues were down 14 million from, which is 60-some%. So that was a big hit to us. And sadly, we've been dark here for the first few months here of the year, and we don't know what 2021 holds for us. All the events entirely in our trade convention center have been canceled for the first 6 months. Fortunately, we do have the vaccine clinic in here that we're getting rent from to help us out a little bit. So there's a lot of unknowns. The Saskatoon exhibition is obviously our largest production. We're hoping that it might go in August in a modified form. Right now, we work with our North American Midway company, come out of the United States with the rides, and Calgary Stampede, who's the class of our industry, which are trying to get their Stampede off in early July. They're working with the Alberta government, which it just seems like it now with all the COVID that it's not going to happen. But I think the governments are looking at if they can get 65 to 70% of the people vaccinated, that the cases will come down dramatically, and they'll be able to open up some outdoor events in the summer with social distancing. So we've mapped it all out. Our Midway company is very good at looking at how we can actually get a reasonable amount of people on the park with social distancing and run a full fair. It would be outdoors. There would be no entertainment indoors. So it'd be quite modified, maybe some smaller acts in the grandstand and the like, but we're still trying. We'll probably know in the next 30 days where that'll go. And then hopefully some of our fall events, our facilities are booked solid for the fall. We would like to get some of those off the ground, not only for Prairieland, but for our clients too, that generate a lot of revenue in this park. So I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, it has hit this corporation hard for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mark, I mean, what a year to try and muscle through in light of all those disappointments and all those challenges. But it sounds like Prairieland is poised to come roaring back here when it's safe to do it. I can tell you that I can't wait for my annual injection of sugar and carbs on that Midway. That's a tradition in our family, has been forever. If I don't get an elephant ear this year, I don't know. So I'm very hopeful the plans pan out and that we can see something that looks like a return to normal this year. Maybe just looking at the time, I'll maybe turn things over to Trina. We've got a couple of giveaways here, and then I'll wrap things up with you and Mark, and Al. Trina, over to you.
Thank you, Jason, for that. So I have a gift certificate from Scarlet Lounge here in the Sheraton Cavalier Hotel, and you've all been entered in through our Chamber Master website, so it'll automatically pick a winner. If you are that winner, you can stop by the Chamber office Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and pick it up. So the lucky winner today is Chris Welton. So congratulations, Chris Welton. You can stop by and pick up your gift certificate anytime. And now back to you, Jason.
Awesome. Congratulations, Chris. Thanks for being here this morning. It's good to see you. So with that, what can we say? Thank you, Mark and Al, for the insights and the overview today. You read so much about this, you hear so much about this. It's really great to hear it from people who are directly involved and really driving the process. So thank you very much. And of course, thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. Take care of yourselves and those around you, and we'll see you at another Power Breakfast again really soon. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.